Hello students and all the viewers watching this video. I, Dr. Nikhil Kumar, welcome all of you to the YouTube channel of our Experimental Condensed Matter Physics group. I am working as an assistant professor in Department of Physics, DDU Gorakhpur University, Gorakhpur. I did my PhD from IIT Kanpur in collaboration with CNRS Institut Neil in Grenoble, France. Now coming to the first lecture in the series to be followed, the topic of this lecture is magnetic properties of materials, where I will discuss various varieties of magnetic materials. This topic is covered in BSc and MSc courses of standard UGC syllabus and will be useful for students preparing for CSIR JRF, GATE, JEST, JAM and any other competitive exam. So this is the outline of my lecture. First I will discuss basics of magnetism, followed by the types of magnetism, where I will discuss various varieties of magnetism and the theories related with it. At the end of the lecture, an assignment will be also given to students for self-assessment. The history of magnetism dates back to 600 years before Christ. Why the scientists were able to explain this phenomena only in 20th century? It were Greeks who first discovered this phenomena in a mineral known as magnetite, which we know today as the compound of oxygen and iron, which is Fe3O4. So Greeks used this mineral to form magnets which have tendency to attract any other magnetic material. So we know today that this tendency of attracting or repelling is actually because of magnetic field, which is originated because of electrons revolving around the nucleus. So magnetism is actually a physical property of material due to which it attracts or repel any other material. So in this lecture, I will use three terminology. One is magnetization, another one is magnetic susceptibility, and third one is magnetic dipole moment. Now what is magnetization? The ability to get magnetized in presence of magnetic field is known as magnetization. It is also defined as magnetic dipole moment per unit volume. And what is the relation between magnetic field intensity, magnetic flux density and magnetization? So we know that B is equal to mu naught H plus M, where B is magnetic flux density, H is the applied external magnetic field, and M is magnetization. Here mu naught is magnetic permeability of free space. Now what is magnetic susceptibility? Magnetic susceptibility is the quantitative measure of the extent up to which the material may be magnetized when a magnetic field is applied. So chi-m is actually the ratio of magnetization to the applied external magnetic field. So chi-m is equal to m by h. Using these two equations, chi-m is equal to m by h and B is equal to mu naught H plus M, one gets that this magnetic susceptibility is given as mu r minus 1, where mu r is the relative permeability of the given medium. Now what is magnetic dipole moment? Dipole moment is a quantity that represents the magnetic strength and orientation of a magnet or any other object that produces a magnetic field. Here in this picture, a magnet is shown that has two poles, north pole and south pole. Field lines are emerging from north pole and going to the south pole. The magnetic movement direction is from south to north pole. The field lines don't intersect with each other. So the movement of electrons orbiting around the nucleus can be approximated as a dipole model, and the magnetic dipole moment is given as mu is equal to I into A, where I is the current flowing in the loop and A is the area vector. So basic source of magnetism is because of magnetic moments arising due to motion of electrons around the nucleus, and that may have two components. One is the orbital motion and another one is the spin motion. So magnetic moment of single electron arising either due to orbital motion or spin motion is known as Mohr magneton and is given as mu b is equal to EH by 4 pi m, which is a physical constant. Not all materials are magnetic in nature, but only specific materials are magnetic because they have unpaired electrons. This we will see in coming sections. So there are various varieties of magnetism. Diamagnetism is one of them. When a material is placed in an external magnetic field and initially the material is non-magnetized, when we place it in a magnetic field, a very small induced magnetic moment is originated which is in opposite direction to the applied magnetic field because of change in orbital motion of electrons. This phenomenon is known as diamagnetism. It is a non-permanent and very weak form of magnetism which persists only in presence of external field. As soon as we remove the magnetic field, it gets again in the initial state, that is the non-magnetized state. Magnetic susceptibility is negative for these materials and the value is minus 10 to minus 6 to minus 10 to minus 5, and this is temperature independent. It does not depend on temperature. Atoms with paired electrons such as bismuth, silicon, copper, silver, water, inert gases and superconductors below Tc are some examples of diamagnets. So here a diamagnet actually repels magnetic field. So here magnetic field lines across the magnet are shown, and a diamagnetic material does not allow the magnetic field to penetrate inside it. So the same phenomena is also observed in superconductors below Tc. So superconductors below critical temperature also show diamagnetic property. So what are superconductors? So when a material is cooled below a particular temperature known as critical temperature and shows zero resistivity phenomena, this material is known as superconductor and this temperature is known as critical temperature. So above this critical temperature, material is normal. It may be a normal metal or insulator, whatever. And below the particular critical temperature, this material is actually superconducting. So when above Tc, the field lines cross through the material, but below Tc, the field lines does not penetrate inside the material as it is now showing diamagnetic property. If B is equal to 0 inside the material, so from chi m is equal to m by h, this value is actually minus 1. So thus superconductors shows a diamagnetic property which have magnetic susceptibility equal to minus 1 and which is temperature independent. So the negative and temperature independent susceptibility can be understood by Langevin theory of diamagnetism, which is also known as classical electron theory, given by Langevin in 1905. According to this theory, consider an electron revolving around a nucleus of atomic number Ze. So there are two forces acting on this electron. The first one is centripetal force Fc, which is equal to m omega naught square r, where omega naught is the frequency of revolution and r is the radius of the orbit. And another one is the Coulombic attraction force Z square by 4 pi epsilon naught r square. So this frequency of revolving electron can be found by equating these two forces and can be given as omega naught is equal to square root of Z square by 4 pi m epsilon naught r cube. Now when we apply a magnetic field along Z axis, so what will happen? An additional Lorentz force also start acting, whose direction is away from the center. So thus the angular frequency of the electron now changes because of this new additional force, and by balancing the force equation one gets the new frequency of revolution, which is given as omega is equal to plus minus omega naught minus E by AB by 2m. So thus, here there are two signs, plus and minus. The minus sign indicates that those electrons whose orbital magnetic moments mu L are parallel to the field are slowed down by this amount AB by 2m, while those with moments anti-parallel are speeded up by an amount AB by 2m. So thus the change in magnetic moment delta mu L, which is proportional to delta L, where L is the orbital angular momentum, and this delta L is actually proportional to delta omega. L is equal to mvr, so mvr omega, so delta L is proportional to delta omega. So the change in magnetic moment is given by this equation, minus E square R square B by 4m. Now for Z electrons, and since the core electrons have different radii delta mu L, so here R square can be replaced by the average of R square, and using B is equal to mu naught H that we know, and using the spherical symmetry, this R square, which is in XY plane only, can be converted into, related with capital R square, which is the average radius of the atom, and that has a three-dimensional picture. R is the average radius of the three-dimensional atom. So this small R square, which is a two-dimensional thing, can be converted using the spherical symmetry in this manner. Thus, for n atoms per unit volume, the magnetic moment m, the magnetization m, is just the number of atoms per unit volume into the change in magnetic moment, and thus from using all these equations, one can estimate the susceptibility chi is equal to m by h, which is actually negative and temperature independent. So here chi is actually dependent on the average of R square. So if you find the average diameter of the atom, one can estimate this susceptibility, which is negative as well as temperature independent. The same can also be derived using quantum theory of diamagnetism. So consider a charged particle in a magnetic field B. So the Hamiltonian can be written as the sum of the kinetic energy term plus potential energy term. So this kinetic energy term gets modified in presence of magnetic field B, that one can derive. This is a homework for students. So this is one can find out in Griffiths or any quantum mechanics book. Now expanding this Hamiltonian has now two terms. One is the unperturbed part, which have p square by 2m plus q phi, which is the term without magnetic field, and another term which is because of the magnetic field, known as the perturbed part of Hamiltonian, which is given by this equation. Now using Coulomb gauge condition, that B should be related with A in such fashion, B is equal to curl of A and divergence of A is equal to 0, one can write down a form of vector potential A in this form. So using this vector potential, this perturbed part of Hamiltonian gets modified to this equation, where the first part is actually just the z component of orbital angular momentum, and for diamagnetic materials, since the orbits are closed, so the orbital angular momentum component will be 0. This part will be 0. The first term actually vanishes. So the perturbed part of Hamiltonian constitutes only this part for diamagnetic material, which is q square b square by 8m and then x square plus y square. So using the similar conditions, so since this is a two-dimensional x square plus y square case, So that can be represented if you assume that R is the average radius of the atom. So this two-dimensional thing can be replaced by a three-dimensional picture. So that x square plus y square can be written as 2 by 3 of R square. So from there, E prime can be written as q square b square by 12m into R square, which is diamagnetic component. So the magnetic susceptibility, magnetization is just minus del E by del B, and that can be written as in this form. Now for B is equal to mu naught H, here mu naught is missing, kindly correct it. Since B is equal to mu naught H for non-magnetic materials, so chi is equal to m by H. So susceptibility is again negative and temperature independent. So it is minus mu naught n E square Z R square average divided by 6m. So this is the similar equation which we obtained in the classical case. Thus the diameter susceptibility is again negative and independent of temperature. So the classical picture and quantum picture gives us the same result, that the diameter susceptibility is negative and independent of temperature. Now we will go to the paramagnetic susceptibility. So in a paramagnetic substance, the orientation of magnetic dipoles in absence of external magnetic field is random. So initially the magnetic dipoles are randomly oriented, so the net magnetization is 0. But when an external magnetic field is applied, all the dipoles tend to align along the direction of magnetic field, and finally all of them are aligned in the direction of magnetic field, leading to a net positive magnetization in the sample. So material which exhibit small positive magnetization and susceptibility to the magnetic field are known as paramagnetic materials, and this effect is termed as paramagnetism. This effect is also non-permanent form of magnetism, and it persists only in the presence of magnetic field. As soon as this magnetic field is removed, the initial state of the material is achieved, and again these dipole moments are randomly oriented. So this effect is possible only in presence of magnetic field. The magnetic susceptibility of all these materials is slightly positive but quite small. The order is 10 to the power minus 5 to 10 to the minus 3 and varies inversely with temperature. This law is known as Curie law, where susceptibility, the magnetic susceptibility, varies inversely proportional with temperature. The atoms with unpaired electrons such as aluminum, platinum, manganese, calcium, sodium, niobium, oxygen, etc. are the examples of paramagnetic materials, and here we can see that in paramagnetic substances the magnetic field penetrates inside the material. Just contrast to the diamagnetic material, where in diamagnetic materials magnetic field doesn't penetrate inside the material, while in paramagnetic materials it penetrates inside the material. So there are also classical and quantum theories that describe paramagnetism that we will see in the next slide. The small positive and temperature dependent susceptibility of paramagnetic materials can be understood by the classical theory of paramagnetism, which is also known as Curie law, according to which the magnetic susceptibility of paramagnetic substances is inversely proportional to temperature. To describe this, consider a material with n magnetic dipoles per unit volume, each with magnetic moment mu. The potential energy of a magnetic dipole in magnetic field B is given as U is minus mu dot B, which is minus mu B cos theta. Suppose that B is applied along the z-axis and this magnetic moment makes an angle theta with that. So the probability of finding the dipole along the theta direction is proportional to the Boltzmann factor f theta, which is given as f theta is equal to exponential minus u by kbt, which is exponential mu b cos theta by kbt. Now the average value of mu z, which is the projection of magnetic moment along the field direction, is given as mu z average is integration of mu z f theta d omega divided by integration of f theta d omega, where the integration is carried out over the solid angle whose element is d omega. The integration thus takes account all possible orientation of the dipoles. So to do the integration, we know that this mu z is just the mu cos theta and d omega is a solid angle. Okay? Here the integration goes from 0 to pi, and one can solve this equation by substituting cos theta is equal to x. Okay? So this mu z average is found to be a function which is known as Langevin function LA, which is equal to cot hyperbolic a minus 1 over a. If you expand this Langevin function LA, where a is quite small, so it gives LA is equal to a by 3 minus a cube by 45 plus so on. So for a less than 1, this Langevin function LA is approximated to the first term only, which is a by 3. So magnetization in general is just the n times mu z, where n is the number of dipoles in the system per unit volume. So magnetization M is just the n mu LA, where LA is the Langevin function. So this is just n mu cot hyperbolic a minus 1 over a. So for the case when this a, what is a? A is just the mu b by kbt. So when a is quite small in comparison to 1, it means mu b is quite small in comparison to kbt. That is, for low magnetic field and high temperature, what happens? This M is equal to n mu z, and this LA is just a by 3. So this magnetization M is m mu square b by 3 kbt, and we know that b is equal to mu naught h, and from there susceptibility can be estimated as chi is equal to m by h. So this gives a form which is inversely dependent on temperature. So chi is equal to c by t, where c is a Curie constant, and this is known as the Curie law. So here the paramagnetic susceptibility of paramagnetic materials is inversely proportional to temperature. So chi is inversely proportional to the temperature. It close to 0, this value of chi abruptly is inversely large, and if you plot 1 by chi versus temperature, it is linear. This is the plot of magnetization when a is not small. So magnetization m by m naught is proportional to LA, which is cot hyperbolic a minus 1 over a. So for smaller values of a, this is almost linear, but as a tends to infinity, this function actually asymptotically approach to 1. So this is the Curie law based on the Langevin's classical theory. Same can also found from the quantum theory of paramagnetism. So the component of magnetic moment of an atom are as following. The first one is orbital magnetic moment, and the second one is spin magnetic moment. So orbital magnetic moment is proportional to the orbital quantum number L, and similarly the spin magnetic moment mu s is proportional to the spin quantum number s. The total magnetic moment of atom mu j is actually minus g e by 2m into j, where j is the total angular momentum, which is L plus s, and in presence of magnetic field, according to space quantization, this jz, the z component of angular momentum along the field direction, is actually mj h cross, where mj can take values from minus j to j. So the magnetic moment of an atom along the magnetic field corresponding to a given value of mj is actually minus mj g mu b. So thus the magnetic moment of electrons is actually quantized. It can't take any value, but it can take values only dependent on the value of mj, which can take values from minus j to j. So thus there may be 2j plus 1 such values. Now if a dipole is kept in a magnetic field B, then potential energy of the dipole is minus mu j dot b, which gives the potential energy is minus mj g mu b b. And using the Boltzmann factor and following the similar analysis as done in the earlier case, one can actually find out the metallization M is just n times mu average, and mu average is given by this equation, where the summation goes from minus j to plus j. So there will be two cases. One, when this coefficient mjg mu b by kbt is quite large, so the value of magnetization comes out to be in the form of a Brillouin function, which is a complicated function of cot hyperbolic x, cot hyperbolic a, where the value of a is g j mu b into b by kbt, and this magnetization is actually dependent on the values of j. If let's say j is equal to half, so this m by ms value follows tan hyperbolic a curve. When j is equal to infinity, so this m by ms follows the classical Langevin equation, which is cot hyperbolic a minus 1 over a. So for other values of j, the Brillouin function actually varies in between these two limits. Now in this other case, when this coefficient is much smaller in comparison to the 1, so in this case the magnetization is found to be inversely proportional with temperature, and so does the magnetic susceptibility, which is chi is equal to m by h, which is also found to be inversely dependent with temperature. So chi is c by t, where c is again the QE constant and have similar value as found in the classical case. Now coming to the next kind of magnetic material, which is ferromagnetic materials. The phenomena is known as ferromagnetism. So ferromagnetic materials are those materials which, when placed in an external magnetic field, are strongly magnetized in the direction of magnetic field and exhibit a spontaneous net magnetization at the atomic level, even in the absence of external magnetic field. So this effect is actually permanent form of magnetism, which persists even in the absence of an external field. This is the result of permanent unpaired dipoles formed from unfilled energy levels. So magnetic susceptibility of ferromagnetic materials is quite large, which is of the order of 10 to the power 2 to 10 to the power 6, and iron, cobalt, nickel, GD and many other transition metals are the examples of these ferromagnets. These ferromagnetic materials follow Curie-Weiss law, which we will see in coming slides. So above the Curie temperature, the ferromagnetic materials behave as paramagnetic materials, and their susceptibility is given by chi-m is proportional to 1 by T minus Tc, where Tc is the Curie temperature. So at Curie temperature, there is a transition from ferromagnetic phase to paramagnetic phase. These ferromagnetic materials shows a hysteresis loop in M versus H curve, and this is because of the existence of magnetic domains in the ferromagnetic material. So once the magnetic domains are reoriented along the field direction, it takes some energy to turn them back, and this property of ferromagnetic materials is useful as a magnetic memory. So we will see this domain theory in coming slide. The law of ferromagnetism was successfully explained by Weiss in 1907 by domain theory, according to which a ferromagnetic material consists of several small size regions known as domains. In each particular domains, the magnetic moments are aligned in a particular direction. The different domains can have different orientation of magnetic moment, leading to net magnetization 0 at 0 magnetic field. But when the magnetic field is applied, the domains which are along the field direction, also known as favorable domains, expand on the expense of unfavorable domains. So at the end, all the domains, actually the magnetic moments in all the domains aligned along the field direction. This phenomena still persists when you remove the field, and there is still the net magnetization persists in absence of magnetic field. So one can understand the hysteresis loop in M versus H curve based on this domain theory. So if we start with non-magnetized specimen at 0 magnetic field, where domains are randomly oriented, where the magnetic moments are randomly oriented, okay, yeah, or you can say the domains are randomly oriented. So with increasing magnetic field, so we are at this point, we are right now at this point O, where at 0 magnetic field, magnetization M is 0. Now when we increase the magnetic field, the magnetization M starts increasing. The domains are actually trying to rotate itself along the direction of magnetic field. So at a particular point E, the magnetization reaches a maximum value Ms, such that if we increase the magnetic field beyond this particular value, still the magnetization doesn't increase. So we have attained a saturation value of magnetization, and this is because of the fact that all magnetic domains are actually aligned in this particular direction, in the direction that is the direction of magnetic field. So even if you increase the magnetic field, there will be no increase in the magnetization. So this value is known as saturation magnetization, and at this point all the domains are aligned along the magnetic field. Now when we reduce the magnetic field, what happens? It doesn't follow the same path. It doesn't follow this path EAO, but it follows some different path. This the blue colored path, which is because of hysteresis. So when we reduce, when we are reducing the magnetic field, so what will happen? When we completely reduce the magnetic field, and at 0 magnetic field, still there is some magnetization remaining in the material, that is known as the remnant magnetization or residual magnetization. So to attain the 0 magnetization state, we need to apply a negative field or the field in the opposite direction that field is actually known as coercivity, HC. It is a measure of the reverse field needed to drive the metallization to zero state after being saturated. Thus, the amount of reverse magnetic field required to demetallize the specimen is known as coercivity. And further increasing the field in opposite direction, we can get to the saturation in opposite direction. Now, when we trying to increase the field, we actually follow this curve, and this actually whole curve in M versus H shows a hysteresis loop. This trace out is known as hysteresis loop with alternating magnetic field. So we actually proposed a molecular field theory of ferromagnetism, according to which, since even in absence of magnetic field, the domains, the magnetic moments in the domains were aligned in a particular direction, so that may cause an intermolecular field because of metallization in individual domains. So this intermolecular field actually is proportional to the metallization that he assumed and has the form Hm is equal to lambda m, where lambda is independent of temperature, called molecular field constant. So the net effective field is actually He is equal to H plus lambda m. So let's consider a ferromagnetic solid containing n number of atoms per unit volume, and for metallization due to spins of electrons, let's say consider the case of G is equal to half as done in the case of quantum theory of parameterism. One can write down the equation for metallization in terms of temperature and electromagnetic field, which is M is equal to N mu B tan hyperbolic mu naught mu B He by kBT, where He is the effective magnetic field and that is the sum of H plus lambda m. So the value of metallization is modified to this form, and one can actually solve this for at sufficient high temperature. When this value is quite less than 1, one can solve this equation and find out that susceptibility chi is equal to C by T minus theta, where theta is this constant known as Curie's constant, and this law is known as Curie's law. As per this law, the susceptibility actually varies inversely with temperature, but there is a transition. There is a ferromagnetic to paramagnetic transition at this critical temperature known as Curie temperature. So this is the Curie's law, that at a particular temperature there is a transition from ferromagnetism to paramagnetism, and this is known as Curie's law. So here this is the plot of 1 by chi versus temperature. So this is the in ferromagnetism, this susceptibility 1 by chi goes to 0 at theta, and in paramagnetism this goes to 0 at 0 temperature. So the plot of for spontaneous magnetization, that is H is equal to 0, M by Ms value is of the form of tan hyperbolic alpha. So this is the form of magnetization in absence of magnetic field, and this is the Curie's law as explained by Wies molecular field theory. So here in the next slide we have discussed about antiferromagnetism and ferrimagnetism. So antiferromagnetism, magnetic dipoles with similar moment align alternatively in opposite direction, so the net metallization is 0. Here all the magnetic moments are aligned alternatively, but alternatively their direction is opposite to each other, so that the net metallization is 0. And the magnetic susceptibility is of the order of 10 to the power minus 5 to 10 to the minus 3, that is quite small but positive. And at a particular temperature known as Néel temperature, there is transition from antiferromagnetism to paramagnetism, and at this temperature known as Néel temperature, the susceptibility is actually maximum. So chromium, magnesium oxide, ferric oxide are examples of antiferromagnets. So here in ferrimagnets, the ceramics, there may be some ceramics. In some ceramics, the dipoles of a cation may align along the field, while dipoles of other cation may not, and their intensity may be different. So this is similar to the antiferromagnetism case, where you have alternatively arranged dipoles, but the intensity of these dipoles may be different. Like here, let's see, up direction dipoles are stronger in comparison to the down direction dipole moments. So, due to which actually there is a net magnetization in the system. So magnetic susceptibility of ferrimagnets is quite large, which is greater than 100, and they follow actually Curie-Weiss law. So ferrimagnetism is actually similar to antiferromagnetism in the sense that different spins actually line up, but line up in anti-parallel sense. However, the spins do not cancel each other out, and a net spin movement exists. So below Tn, that is the Néel temperature, ferrimagnets behave similar to ferromagnets, and above it just like paramagnets. So, in ferrimagnetism substances below Tn, so at Tn actually there is a transition from ferromagnets to paramagnets. So examples are iron oxide, Fe3O4, MnFe2O4, NiFe2O4, etc. So this is actually a comparison table for various types of magnetism. So I have already explained diamagnetism, paramagnetism, ferromagnetism, antiferromagnetism, and ferrimagnetism. So this is a comparison table for students. This may be quite useful. So here the graphs of susceptibility, M versus S curve, etc. is already plotted. So this for a quick review, this may be quite good table for students. I think students should go through it. So these are some of the references. Materials have been taken from these books: Charles Kittle, Stuart Mermin, B.D. Culty, and Graham Jr. M.A. Wahab is also quite good book, one can follow. Some pictures have been taken from these references. Students should follow these assignments for self-assessment and should solve all the questions and all the theory related to this lecture. So this is the advertisement of our experimental condensed matter physics group. So we have actually a group of 10 faculties in Department of Physics who work in experimental condensed matter physics. So we have decided to upload lectures and research updates on regular pattern. So students can find out our updates from these sites. This is ePathshala website of DDU Gorakhpur University, where students can actually get e-material of various subjects of different faculties. So this is my faculty profile. Students can check that out. And this is the Facebook page and YouTube channel where these videos and the study material will be uploaded on regular pattern. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you everyone.